Welcome to Paladin Financial Talk. I am your host today, Ellie Robison. I have a guest host with us today, Zach Langemeier.
Hi.
Thanks, Zach. He's our paraplanner / sports guy in our Paladin office. And I also have our typical co-host, Tony Shore, with us as well. So welcome to the both of you.
I've never been accused before now of being typical. But
I mean, everyone
but
knows
thank
your
you.
name, your voice. Like, everyone knows you, Tony.
I don't know if there's anything typical about me, but I'll take it. I'll take that as a compliment. But yeah, great to be here. Wow, I didn't know the Paladin Financial team had that title or that role there, sports guy.
Yep. I try my best to be a big sports guy in the office, and I'm a big Packer guy though, so a lot of people don't get along with me, unfortunately. But
Let me turn your mic off a second.
We
Zach's
make fun of
mic
him a
and
lot.
camera will disappear momentarily. No, I'm kidding. I guess every office has to have one. Kind of like
mean-
every kingdom, every king had a court gesture.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Yep.
It's funny because I do have some younger clients who try to talk sports with me. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't engage in this, but I'll introduce you to our paraplanner Zach in the back.
yep, I try to give her as much information as possible to prepare her for her clients if they bring up sports.
You're the P-
I'm
you're
like,
the
Zach, I need some
Yeah.
tips.
Yeah.
he's the PSE, the Paladin sports expert.
Yeah.
I
I
like
do know
that.
a couple things he keeps me in the loop, like Aaron Rodgers.
You went
he's,
down the other day.
He's
Yep.
down for the season,
He's
right?
out. He's out. He got a check because he got a minimum commitment, and then he decided, I'm just going to go down and take that check.
About $18 million a snap. So
Guaranteed.
Can't complain for him.
Yeah.
So,
He's
Yeah.
making good money moves.
yep. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. I think he has enough now, though. At some point.
He needs to retire.
Yeah. And you guys
Come
can help
talk to
him with that.
Paladin.
Talk to the Paladin
Yeah.
team.
Yep.
Talk to the Paladin team.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Zach, great to have you on the show, first of
Yeah,
all.
thanks for having me.
And if you wonder what I've been doing, last weekend, my parents celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary.
Oh, congratulations
Yeah,
to them.
and it was really sweet because my dad is, he's starting to slow down, but my mom has Parkinson's and she's in the late stages. So she's starting to get what they call Lewy bodies dementia, which goes along with Parkinson's, and she can't do a lot by herself anymore. She's in a home, but she's still sharp
Okay.
for the
Oh,
most
good.
part. She
Good.
forgets some words, but it was funny because they asked my dad. We invited some friends, and we had it there at Maple Lawn where she's at, and so a bunch of neighbors and friends came over, which that really meant a lot to my parents. And then some of the other residents were there, and we had cake and cupcakes and ice cream, and they loved it. But my dad, they said, wow, 60 years. And he said, 60 years of marriage, 10 years of marital bliss.
Oh.
And then jokingly, and then they asked my mom, how do you do it? How did you stay married to the same person and stay happily married for 60 years? And she said, he was gone a lot.
Oh boy. You know what? I love you and your family.
He was an over-the-road truck driver, so he was gone for a couple of weeks at a time, And so, but there's some truth to it, but it is great, that they're celebrating
That is
60
a very
years.
notable thing, and congratulations to
Yeah,
them.
thanks.
Yeah.
So that was fun. How about you, Zach? Have you been busy?
Yeah, I actually have moved recently. My fiance and I are getting married here in June of next year, so 9 months from now.
Congratulations.
Yes,
and then
thank
soon you'll be celebrating your 60th.
Yes, yep.
Well, in about
Give it
61
60
years.
years,
yeah.
Give or take 60 years.
I'd
Sure.
be very blessed if we got to that point.
Yeah,
so I'd
yeah.
be very happy.
Long,
So,
healthy
Well,
life.
congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
thank you.
got to be exciting.
yes, a lot of moving parts right now, but happy with everything. So
Yeah, plus busy at work. You guys, Ellie, have been busy at Paladin, haven't you?
Oh yeah, we're diving back into seminar season. So it's a grind at this point, the last couple of weeks, and it's not going to stop. So
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
And before we go today, maybe at the end of the show or whenever you want to do it, you should let our listeners know how they can get a hold of the Paladin team. And I know that how they can get into the seminars. Some
yeah.
of our listeners might, hey, I don't work with Paladin yet, or I'd like to get some answers to some questions. Those workshops and seminars are a great way to do that.
Absolutely.
Yes, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking about your topic today that you told me about, Ellie, is sports and student loans. Wow. Okay.
I know. I wanted to pull Zach in for this. the main reason why we wanted to sit down was student loans. The environment right now, there's been a lot of moving parts. We know that student loans were on hold for a while there, but Zach and I, we have been affected by student loans in the last 10 years of our lives here. And I'm sure, Tony, you have an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old, right?
I have an 18, a 20, and a 24-year-old.
And a 24. So she's probably been affected, the oldest one at least, has been affected by student loans, I'm assuming.
Yes, they all have.
It's hard to
at this point.
avoid it at this point. So, so that's why I wanted to sit down, and based on my conversations with Zach in the past, he's found a way on how to help chip down your student debt.
Wow, that's great.
Yep.
We'll go over a lot today, and we'll kind of wrap up on the sports side of it, but so that's what we're going to dive into.
All right. Yeah. Well, even for our older listeners out there, I'm sure they have kids or grandkids that have student loan debt. It seems like everyone I know has student loan debt or is affected by it in some way.
Yes, absolutely. So you know me with my statistics. I like looking up numbers. So I found some numbers out there. About 45 million Americans have student loan debt. That's 1 in 5 adults out there. And that's according to the latest census data. So between people ages 25 and 34, they're most likely to hold student debt. That checks out. That makes sense. But the greatest amount of debt is owed by 35 to 49-year-olds, which was really surprising to me.
Yeah.
So
very.
And about 92% of student loans are owned by the U.S. Department of Education. So these are federal loans, and we're going to dial in on federal loans today. But we know that private loans are accessible as well. So.
Yep. Interest was on hold for about 3 years for those public loans. So obviously with the Biden administration and all those things, those are starting to come back into effect, and those first payments start up in October. So for the interest payments.
Yep. So the Supreme Court took Biden's proposal completely off the table back in June. So it's not even an option anymore to have any type of forgiveness whatsoever.
Yeah, because didn't they propose to keep that in place, the COVID, so people could still not have to pay on their loans now?
Yes. Yep. And that was a part of Biden running for presidency. He was basically promising a $10,000 forgiveness for every single person who held that federal debt, and up to $20,000 for some borrowers. That's totally off the table at this point. So we're going to talk about some changes that have been made since that couldn't get passed through. Let's go through some of my notes here. So for a majority of Americans, most people know that their debt is held at some type of provider. There's 11 major providers, and so Nelnet is one of them, Great Lakes is one of them, Cornerstone is one of them. But there is a chance in the last 3 years, if you haven't been keeping tabs on your debt, your provider could have changed.
And one of mine actually has changed, and I noticed it about 4 or 5 months ago, and I didn't get any notice, so I'd keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was possible.
Didn't do a great job of letting you know, and you don't want to skip.
Yeah. Mortgages are the same way. Home mortgage, that'll happen a lot, where we'll just get a letter, hey, we've sold your loan to this other company or transferred it over to them, and I'm like, that's weird.
And when that happens, it can ding your credit too. Unfortunately, there's no way around it, but just be mindful that
that's crazy.
It might affect your credit score as well. So just to make sure that the government has all your updated contact information, you can start with studentaid.gov, making sure everything's up to date there, and then hunting down where all your loans might be held at now, since debt repayments are starting back up here in October.
Wow.
So I have in my notes here, just to make sure that everyone is aware, that the actual interest resumed starting September 1st of this month. So interest is now starting to accrue again. It accrues at a simple interest. It's not compound. So just like a mortgage payment, it accrues daily on the principal balance. So that's something to be mindful of when it comes to holding this type of debt. So,
yeah. So, but payments aren't due until next month, right?
Next month, or even November. Just depends on your provider. You just got to make sure that you're logged in appropriately and know what's going on with your provider.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. My son has quite a large loan from grad school.
Okay.
Because he's going into the medical field, and so that's a lot of money.
It's scary. It's very scary. There are some like new repayment options and forgiveness with Biden's help on this. So I do have notes on what some of these might be. There is a brand new on-ramp program, So if you cannot make payments, it will not be reported to the credit bureau if you miss any payments or only make partial payments. And that will last through September 2024, but you have to make sure that you are signed up appropriately. So if this is a bad environment for you to be turning those back on, make sure that you look into the on-ramp program. There are brand new income-driven repayment plans that you might now qualify for. So that has always been around, but now they're starting to restructure. So you want to make sure that you recertify your income, and you have up until 6 months starting now to make sure that you're up to date on your IDR is the acronym for it.
Okay.
So under the normal standard repayment plan and under the normal IDR plan, despite where your employment lies, for the people who have been making consecutive payments for the last 20 to 25 years, you may receive forgiveness. So the loophole there is like you had to have been making your payments all throughout the last 3 years where interest was on hold, which I know a lot of people kind of utilize that time to not make any payments, so that's where they kind of get you.
I don't know any young people who were making student loan payments the last 3 years.
Yeah.
I focused on the private side because I have public and private, so those obviously never turned off, so I tried to maximize that time period to pay off the private loans.
So that's one of your strategies when the federal student loans got put on hold, so you didn't have to make payments there. You put extra money, or the money you would have been putting into those, into the private loans or the other debt you had to get that paid down sooner. Smart.
Now that both are about to be turned back on, at least I got somewhat of a jump start, hopefully, on the private side. So
good.
It is smart. So these people that have been making the payments consecutively for 20 to 25 years, which sounds like a long time, but they're out there. These borrowers, they have direct loans or federal family education loans, which includes Parent Plus loans. So if I do have some older clients that hold that Parent Plus loan for some kids who are starting to grow up, that is something to be notable of. And if you feel like you fall in this category and haven't heard anything about this forgiveness, I have read that there were major errors made by the Department of Education on calculating past continuous payments. So if you feel like you fall under the category, just wait for an email on the Department of Education, as they're going to be recalculating things through the rest of this year to make sure that they have all the updated information in their system.
Wow. Yeah, well, it doesn't sound like much relief for the majority of student loan holders out there, though.
Unfortunately not, but it counts for something. So there's also a brand new SAVE program that Biden helped put on the table, and this is under the income-driven repayment plan. This doesn't apply to Parent Plus loans, but it is replacing an old repay type of plan is what it was called prior. And so this SAVE plan, it calculates lower payments based on the borrower's income and family size. The formula is being cut down from 10% of discretionary income to 5%. So that's a huge saving under the IDR plan through the SAVE program. And it was like calculated and created based on the federal poverty level. So it's going to help families who have lower income. But technically, it's not coded as a forgiveness plan, but there is an additional part to it where in the beginning of 2024, those with a principal balance loans of less than $12,000 in remaining balances will be forgiven after 10 consecutive years of payments under the SAVE plan. So payments made prior to 2024 will still count towards the forgiveness timeframe.
Sure.
There's a lot to this. Like, I have to read my notes because, like, it feels like they're constantly changing rules on student loans, and it's really hard. I remember going through this when I was 18, 19 years old. I didn't understand anything.
No,
it's hard.
My parents a lot of those questions.
Yeah, we had to sit down with our daughter who just is going to college for the first year and figure all this out, the loans and things. And even with the three of us and the student loan office at the college on the phone, It was very complex.
Yes.
And like finding out how to check on things and pay things, most college sites, it's hard. They have stuff buried. And I don't know how the average person can figure it all out and do what this deadline was then and you needed to do this. And it is very, very complicated.
Mm-hmm. You almost have to find a professional who niches specifically on student loans.
Yep.
So it's hard to keep up. It's hard to know all of it.
I used to do a radio show with a guy who did some financial advisory work, but his primary business was student loans and college planning.
It's another breed, honestly.
Yeah. I find that not everyone that works in the financial aid office at the college knows everything about it.
Yeah.
Nope.
Even what they're
not even their own
Yep.
system.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yep.
But there usually is one or two in that office if you can find that person.
Yep.
Usually at least one person knows their stuff, right?
Yeah. You gotta be what's the word? Tenacious or stay on top of it.
Yeah, you really do. Yeah, you really do.
Yeah, like Zach has. That's good, and we should talk about that some more too. About things Zach has done.
Yeah.
We'll get there. I have a couple more notes I want to
go
through.
All right. I didn't mean to rush you.
No worries, Tony. Last thing is the public service loan forgiveness that I have noted here. They made a couple changes. These are for employees that have been working for the government, whether it's a federal level, a state level, a local level, or a nonprofit organization. You might qualify for forgiveness under the income-driven repayment plan and 10 years of consecutive payments, which it used to be 20 years at once upon a time. So that affects a larger section of people who have this debt. So okay. So now let's talk about tips on how we can pay down this debt. There's just a couple things just from dealing with this stuff firsthand. I know if you set your payments automatically, you can get a lower interest. And it depends on the provider, but it can be up to 0.25% of interest that is knocked off if you set it up automatically.
And it kills the interest as you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And so hand in hand with that, if you make 2 payments per month as opposed to 1, since it's a simple accrual interest payment, like you'll be chopping down that principal a lot faster if you make 2 payments rather than 1.
Yep.
So
and if you can afford to have that on auto payment for the even interest and then have like a $500 chunk that goes directly into principal, you're going to see that accumulate even faster.
Yeah.
That's great.
And for some of my younger clients, like making sure that you do not miss a payment is very important. It's really nice that there is this new on-ramp program that Biden helped set, but if you do miss a payment, it will affect your credit score pretty negatively. So be mindful of that and be very responsible, please.
Sure.
Especially with public loans starting back up, you definitely want to be aware of that.
Hunt down your providers and make sure that you've got everything set up and go back to the drawing board on your budgeting. This is going to affect a lot of millennials and Gen X people who have student debt. So we're a little nervous, but it'll be okay. Okay, well, Zach, I know that you have a way to strategize on paying your student debt. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I actually heard this from a family friend. So they started doing this probably 4 or 5 years ago. It's a nonprofit. It's called Achieving Dreams. And essentially, you go through the training to basically be a concession stand worker at all the major events, Minnesota Twins, Minnesota Timberwolves, Vikings, etc. And you can schedule it based on your schedule, so you can have a full-time job and just do it on a Saturday once a month if that's what works for your schedule. Essentially, you work concessions from 4 to 10 o'clock at night, and those proceeds have to go directly to a student loan payment organization, but it can be made out to your name, and it's tax-free money. So a check is written to you, and you just request that from Achieving Dreams once you've worked a certain amount of hours, and you get that money back.
So you're getting paid for your time.
Yes.
But you get that money tax-free, and it has to go towards student loans.
Student loans. But as parents, you can also do it for your children. It's not just for you specifically.
Oh, okay.
So my fiance, she doesn't have any at the moment. She's assisting me, and she's helping out as well.
So she's doing some of that work,
Yes.
working concessions and things.
Yes.
And that money that she's making goes toward your student loans.
Yes. Yep.
And tax-free money.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
So
huge.
that's even an extra amount. I mean, yeah.
And there's parents, too, that do it specifically for their kids' hockey equipment. It doesn't have to specifically be for student loans, but that's what I've seen when I ask people what they're doing this for.
Education. As long as it goes
key.
toward education expenses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
I was going to say, is it just in Minnesota? Do you know?
I am not 100% sure on that. I'm not. Yeah.
So
we'll
you have
digging.
You have the website though, right, where people can find out
so
more about it?
achievingdreamsmn.org. So it might be just in Minnesota based on this URL.
Yeah.
I did some high level looking at this before we sat down here, Zach. But they're a 501c3 nonprofit. So.
And I've really enjoyed it. It's hard work when you're there, but once you leave, you're really happy because you feel like you just got free money almost.
Well, and if you know what you're
guy, and I'm a sports guy.
Yeah, if you're gonna be,
you still hear the crowd.
Yeah.
And the cheering. Obviously, you don't see anything, but you're there. So
you're
it's
there.
Fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think that's really, that's a great resource. I want to give that website again for our viewers or listeners out there. That's achievingdreamsmn.org. So achievingdreamsmn.org. I wonder if there's an Achieving Dreams WI for Wisconsin.
There
maybe.
might be.
Or it might just be a Minnesota thing.
Yeah,
because we have all the major sports here. It might be localized. Yeah.
But I had no idea it was even a thing.
I didn't either.
I'm sure there's other states that have their own version of this.
Yeah,
I'm
probably.
sure.
Yeah. You can do Gopher games, Loons games. I didn't even mention those. But
that's cool.
Doesn't have to be professional.
Doesn't have to be professional. There's
that's
Golden
nice.
Gopher games for football, basketball, etc. That I've worked, so.
How cool is that?
That is amazing. Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah. So we're happy that we found that.
That's very
Me
cool.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that and your other trick of, when you didn't have to make these other payments to use that money toward paying down other debt. That's smart too.
Yep.
And we've talked about that on past shows. I've talked about that with Jeff and both Jeffs, using money, paying down debt, period, is important.
Yeah.
And student loan debt is just, it's an early debt. It's a large debt. And so, people, I think the most student debt is owed by people over the age of 50, they said, and you wouldn't think that would be right, but you would be surprised how long that debt carries over.
Yep.
And it's because it counts money that loans that parents have signed on for their children.
Yep.
So,
Tony, did you have any debts from college when you went way back in the day?
Nope. No,
Okay.
no, I didn't. I got fortunate. My wife worked for a college, and so I got to go for free.
Oh, nice.
I went back to school for that. And then because I got my first full-time radio job right out of high school, I just took community. I went to community college for a year and a half, and then I moved because I got a new radio job. Then I moved up here, took a few classes at the U. So I had all these classes all over, but then went back and got my degree when my wife got a job as
smart.
the career services director for our school.
Smart.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I did get my degree eventually, but I've been in radio and doing voiceover work full time.
Yeah.
But I'm in my defense, I'm well read.
Well,
I read a lot of books. So.
This is what's frustrating about it is I definitely dug myself into a lot of student debt, but I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was 18 years old.
That's
that
the
is what's
problem.
really hard about this, and what affects a lot of people is you just graduate high school, you're like, well, I don't know what to do. I guess I'll just go to college. I'll just go to a Big 10 or a Big 4 or whatever. Big 10.
Big 10, Big 12.
10.
Yeah.
Sure.
You're close. You're close.
Like,
where did you go to
Big
college?
4 is accounting, sorry.
Where did you go?
University of Iowa. I'm a Hawkeye.
Oh, Hawkeye.
Yep.
And
I went to Northwestern St. Paul right down the road.
oh, yeah,
So,
Northwestern.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the radio stations I worked for was KNWC, which is a sister station to KTIS in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Okay.
And so I know all the guys
Okay.
who started that, and Wayne Peterson and all the guys at the Northwestern. And one of my best friends, Bad Dykstra, who I graduated with, he worked for Northwestern for many years. And I got offered a job there as their social media director when that was first coming on. Sure. And it involved some radio work there. But I turned it down because the the list of responsibilities and then the pay. They gave me a list of responsibilities, and it's like in the cartoons where it unfolds.
A laundry list.
Yeah, a laundry list, and this is all on you. Yeah. And then they told me the pay, and I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Look elsewhere.
But it's a beautiful campus. That's a good school. My daughter wanted to go to St. Thomas, and we said we can't afford it. You know, she wanted to get a general degree like business, right?
Yeah, that's too
and we're
expensive,
like, you know, we can't afford it. So she went out and found a scholarship that get a full ride scholarship and applied for it. And they narrowed it down from 200 to 100, then to 50, then to 25, then to 10. I think they awarded it to 5 people. And she got in. So.
Congratulations
That's awesome.
to her.
Yeah,
That is awesome.
So that was good. And our other 2 that have to pay for college, my son, because he's going into medical, he went to La Crosse where it's inexpensive, and they have a really good system. The University of Wisconsin schools are good. And there he got his 4-year degree in biology inexpensively, and they are well ranked for the PA program there. So that really helped him, and it was inexpensive. And my daughter's going to Winona State for nursing, and that's another inexpensive school comparatively.
Yeah.
And they're nearby each other at least.
Yeah.
So they can go see each other when they want.
Exactly.
So
yeah. So, but debt it's huge. I mean, yeah.
It's one of the biggest ticket items that a lot of kids our age have to crawl themselves out of. It's just...
I told myself once that's paid off, I'm going to go to a really nice fancy dinner.
Yeah.
And just spoil myself for one night, because it'll be a big accomplishment whenever that happens. So.
Well, yeah, when you get rid of those payments, you have to look at that money that you've been paying out each month and say, how am I going to allocate that money?
Yep.
And then what Jeff Foley would tell you to do, you know what he would say, is take that money and don't start spending it or leave it in your checking account where it'll get spent. Or don't go out and buy the brand new car or something, but put that money in an investment so you'll have it later.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
We're well vested in this. Yeah.
I know you are. You guys know. You guys know, but I'm just repeating what, you guys say on the show for our listeners out there, because that's always a good idea, too, once you get something paid off, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Wow, great. And sports, where does sports come into this?
Kind of leaning into the working at Twins games, things like that. That was kind of the tie.
Yeah.
Where I am obsessed with sports. Everyone in the office knows that.
That's
Packers, anything related to Wisconsin sports, pretty much. So.
Wow. Are you from Wisconsin?
I'm from there. I guess I probably should have mentioned that, but so I'm not a huge Vikings fan. A lot of people.
But he knows everything about everything.
I know everything about any sport.
I'm a huge Vikings fan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as of we're recording this on a day when they play, and it's going to be a rough one. I think. They might underestimate some people tonight, just depending on circumstances, but it's a tough matchup.
Yeah. Wait, what's going on?
The Vikings are playing the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia, and all the talking heads say Philly is. A lot of them have them picked to go to the Super Bowl this year.
Oh,
and the Vikings didn't look good at all their first game, so it's. People are saying we have no chance tonight, but
That's usually the best recipe for success sometimes when no one's picking you, though. So wouldn't count them completely out, but I would probably lean Eagles, but can't count them out.
We usually
we'll win. The Vikings will win.
I was going to say, we usually have CNBC on the TVs day in and day out watching the stock market. They were talking about Kirk Cousins today, so I'm like, what is going on?
He's a popular topic right now with the quarterback miniseries.
Yeah, so, that was a great series on Netflix.
Show on Netflix?
Too.
Okay. Yep.
With Mahomes. And,
that
was
amazing. Have you not watched it?
You know what? Surprisingly, I did start to watch it, fell asleep, and I haven't finished the series.
Even people who aren't into football have watched it and said that's amazing. My wife has watched every episode with
my
me.
fiance did too. She actually enjoyed it. She's like, Mahomes, she loved Mahomes' drive, and she's like, makes sense why he won the Super Bowl.
Oh, sure.
It's just football
yeah.
for him.
Yeah, he's great.
Obsessed with it, basically, yeah.
Well, this has been a great show. I mean, student loan debt is a big issue, and I know you guys help a lot of people out with every aspect of their finances and wealth planning and retirement planning. But student loans is a big part of it. It's a part of debt that people need to deal with, just like we need to deal with credit card debt, home mortgages, car payments. So great show today. Let our listeners know, Ellie, how they can get a hold of you.
Well, if you feel ready to get some professional input on your situation, or tying back to the seminars like what you were talking about earlier, Tony, if you want to register for a seminar and just learn more about Paladin and what we have to offer, you can just give us a call. So give us a call at 651-842-8406 to get scheduled or sign up for an upcoming seminar. But we also want to hear any feedback on any topics that might be of interest of you. And you can just shoot us an email at info@financialpaladin.com. So.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you, Zach, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I'm sure you'll be back to host the show again. Ellie,
yes.
Always great to see you. And listeners, that does it for today's episode of Paladin Financial Talk.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks.